welcome. It's Tom here from the Doctors Collective. Today we've got an awesome webinar. Here's what we're doing, right? A lot of doctors struggle with marketing for a number of reasons, which we're going to cover tonight. The two big questions I get is, I don't know how to really do it well, or how to do it effectively, or how to do it without seeming like a self-promoting tosser, or without bragging about myself, or without doing something really cheesy and awkward. And number two is, I'm scared that I'll get in trouble if I do the marketing, I do it effectively. Or some of my competition might not like it, they'll report me and I'll get in trouble and I'll never be able to practice as a doctor again. A few dramatic kind of beliefs, but we're going to address all of that today. So who is this for? This is for doctors who are running a business. So pretty self-explanatory, but if you're not running a business, you're probably not going to need marketing. But if you are running a business, then you 100% need marketing. Now, whether that is a non-clinic based business, so perhaps you've got an online program, or maybe you have retreats that you're running, or maybe you have an e-commerce website, or whatever it is, you're going to need to get the word out about what you do. And in this day and age, relying on referrals and word of mouth isn't going to cut it. It's not enough. It's too slow. It's not reliable. There's too much competition. Right, so you're going to need to do your marketing, you need to do it effectively, and this webinar is for you. And also, if you run a clinic, right, we usually work with doctors doing things differently outside the square box at the Doctors Collective, but we also get a lot of doctors who are running clinics but also want to improve their marketing, bring in the right patients. Imagine not just having to take the ones that come through the door, but attracting the ones you love to work with and are a pleasure to work with. And you can charge them great fees as well. So we're going to talk about how to attract more of those. It's also for you, like we were saying before, if you're just worried about marketing, even if you're perhaps about to get started in your business, but you're wondering, I'm going to cover that today. So right now, I'm about to hand it over to Sarah. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Sarah before we do so. So the way we're going to run this webinar is Sarah, who is a lawyer. She is the principal and the founder of Legal, where she specializes working with doctors to prevent them from getting into trouble and to get them out of it if they're already there. And so she specializes in this stuff. She's got an incredible presentation to share with you guys about how to stay within the rules. And I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna throw it over to her in just a second, and then I'm gonna come back and talk about some of the more advanced marketing strategies and techniques that you can start using and how they fit within the rules. So first, we're gonna set the boundaries of what's allowed, and then we're gonna work within that in a really cool way. So, hi Sarah, how you going?
Good, Tom. How are you today?
Very good, very good.
Hi, everyone. I can see a bunch of people in the participants from the Legal community. So hi, Cindy and George and Jamie and Ming, a bunch of people who Sandy as well, haven't talked to for a while. So very excited to see you here. And I know there's people in the participants who know a lot about marketing to doctors too. So the pressure's on, but also we might be able to defer to you if there's any Kelly questions too. So 5 simple steps to legally compliant marketing for doctors. And those of you who've seen this presentation will know that the simple steps are a little bit, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek because there's a lot of legislation and regulations that govern the way that doctors market, but I'm hoping that after attending this seminar, you'll have a fair bit more in your understanding, and you'll have an understanding of how the legislation and regulations and AHPRA's requirements fit together as well. So, of course, I'm a lawyer. I'm going to start with a disclaimer. So this presentation is for general guidance only. If you've got specific issues that you need advice on, as lawyers always say, it depends. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on all sorts of things. And so if you do need specific advice, then I definitely recommend getting it from a lawyer directly, not necessarily just from a webinar. Who am I? I think Tom covered that. I specialise in medical professionals. I've written a book for medical professionals on how to grow a practice in a legally compliant way, and I do find that marketing is something that all doctors are interested in because it is such a confusing topic. So hopefully you'll get something out of this session tonight. So Tom also covered who is this for. I created this for any doctor who's amazing at what they do and wants to know that they're on the right track when it comes to what they can and can't legally add to their marketing material. In the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to go through how to focus on your marketing and be confident that what you put out there into the world is legally compliant. How you can stop worrying that you're doing something in your marketing collateral that might break the law. So my promise to you is by the end of my session, you'll have a step-by-step strategy to ensure you're confident that your marketing materials are all legal. So I talk to a lot of doctors, and one thing I think we do find is that a lot of doctors feel like there's no way that they can win at marketing in a legally compliant way because it's such a complex web of laws. But the real problem is they haven't been on this webinar to discover my 5-step marketing compliance protocol. So once you know these steps, you will feel like you can win at being a doctor and win at marketing. And I know there's people on this webinar that regularly are already doing that. So we'll start with discovering the 5-step marketing compliance protocol, and I'll check with Tom if he's managed to share my slides yet. Are you almost there, Tom?
No, not there yet.
All right, that's transferring to you. Okay, so I'll close my email so that doesn't happen again. Sorry, everyone. The 5-step marketing compliance protocol is where we are. So the first step to understanding these 5 steps is understanding the legislative framework. So the legislative framework covers a whole round of different legislation. So it includes the health practitioner regulation national law, which I'm just going to call the national law from here on in. The Therapeutic Goods Advertising Code includes APRA. It includes trade practices legislation, which is different in every single state. So now that we understand that, that's step 1. Step 2 is to actually know the law. So in the national law, which is the law that covers everyone in Australia, the section 133 says that a person must not advertise a regulated health service or a business that provides a regulated health service in a way that A, is false, misleading or deceptive, or is likely to be misleading or deceptive, or offers a gift, discount or other inducement to attract a person to use the service or the business unless the advertisement also states the terms and conditions of the offer, or uses testimonials or purported testimonials about the service or business, or D, creates an unreasonable expectation of a beneficial treatment, or E, directly or indirectly encourages the indiscriminate or unnecessary use of regulated health services. So that's pretty big. It basically prohibits you guys from doing most of the things that normal businesses do to market their businesses. So what my plan is with this webinar is to go into a bit of detail with each of these. So I'm not just going to leave that there. That's sort of there as a teaser, and we'll go through and expand on this. So the first thing I think we need to know after that is, well, then what is advertising? So ARPRA has published a definition of what advertising is for its, I'm just putting up the Q&A because I think that's where people are typing.
Yeah, that's where the questions are coming.
We are on to what is advertising. So ARPRA have published a definition. Advertising is actions by people or businesses to draw attention to their services. The ways people and businesses can promote services are almost limitless and include all forms of printed and electronic media. These include any public communications using television, radio, motion pictures, newspapers, billboards, books, lists, pictorial representations, designs, mobile communications, or other displays. Professional websites, the internet or directories, and business cards, announcement cards, office signs, letterhead, telephone directory listings, professional lists, professional directory listings, and similar professional notices. So that's what advertising is, but that's all. That's the first step, and that's important to know. So I've got a bit of a workshop for you. There's a few things that I'm hoping to get some back and forth with you guys in the Q&A box. It's a shame you can't see my slides, but we'll battle on without them. So know the national law. The first question is, a person posts on your Facebook page asking if you can do specific travel immunisations like yellow fever. You reply, yes, of course. Is that okay? Is that acceptable communication with a potential patient? If you guys can hear me, I'd love to know what you think. Yes, I am now getting it. Excellent. Very good. Great. Okay, so that's good. The next one. You are managing a study group investigating the effectiveness of new method of managing type 1 diabetes. You publish your research results in an article on LinkedIn. Is that acceptable? Jamie doesn't know. Yes, no idea. Depends really. What does the article say? George wants more information. Yeah, I think I had that as no, because it's more, it's not really the forum for it, maybe. And maybe it's just that depending, it depends. Maybe that's the legal answer on what the article says. Next one. You retweet a statement from the Westmead Children's Hospital regarding a whooping cough outbreak. Is that okay? I think James and Jamie have hit it on the head with could be a bad study. So if it's a peer-reviewed article, it might be a bit of a different story. Now the retweeting. Yes. Retweeting's fine, especially from places like a hospital or from another, the Cancer Council or some organisation that's got weight behind it. Next one is you do an interview with the local newspaper about whooping cough in your area. What do you, or if it's supporting your brand, Jamie says.
So the slides are up and running now, Sarah. They're on the
Thank
screen.
you, Tom. We can hear you again.
Yeah, sorry, the connection was a bit bad on this end and I was downloading the slides, but it's all up and running. If you have a look, you guys have a look on the slide on the screen, you'll be able to see the slides.
Thank you. And yes, George says it depends on what you say, so I think that's probably right. A patient posts on your Facebook page, we're up to the last one, thanking you for a treatment. Is that okay? This is a good one. Oh, Kellyanne, you're on the same page as George with the last one. No. Good. No endorsement, no testimonials. I'd be careful of that. You must take all reasonable steps, Kellyanne says, to remove this when you become aware of it. And that's right. In fact, did you know, I think on most pages you can disable testimonials for business pages. So that's probably the safest thing. If you can control it, like Kellyanne says, you must take all reasonable steps to remove it. When they're Google ones can be a little harder to remove, although I do know that there have been doctors that have managed to remove them, but it is a tricky one. All right, we'll keep moving. Tom, are you going to move to the next line for me? Yes, thank you.
All good.
Thank you. Excellent. So that's what advertising is, but what is prohibited advertising? So we'll go through these one by one, like I said earlier. First is false, misleading or deceptive, or is likely to be misleading and deceptive. So what is prohibited advertising? It also, if it offers a discount or other inducement to attract the person to use the service or your business, unless the advertisement also states the terms and conditions of the offer. So if we can go to the next slide, we found this one on the internet, book a free hearing check. Do you think this is perhaps prohibited advertising? If you lean into your screen, you might be able to see offer available for adults above the age of 26 in tiny writing. What do you guys playing at home think of that? Do you think that this is prohibited advertising? It does have the terms and conditions. You're right, Atlanta, but I think we're too small. I think the terms and conditions can't be misleadingly small. I also think that this might not genuinely be a free hearing check because it might be a bulk billed hearing check, as George has just said, which makes it using the word free when it's actually someone's paying for it, Medicare's paying for it, could be seen as an indiscriminate use of health funds. And yep, Jamie says if free equals Medicare, lol, that's right, it's not free for Australian taxpayers. Just free for the person who attends the hearing check. But no, yes, so Kellyanne, yes, the text size may not be acceptable, but also the word free might also be misleading. All right, here's another one. This is one I found on the internet. Starting the 14th of November, we have in-house hearing testing. Book your free hearing test with our receptionist. Are you experiencing hearing difficulties? So this one's a hearing check as well, but it's got a fair bit more information. So that might be good to have. It's certainly got a little bit more information about who it might be appropriate for, what sort of patients might be attracted to it. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Is it the word free is there again? Naomi, the chat feature isn't working. It's disabled, unfortunately. So we're just using the Q&A feature to do the chatting today. Yes, I think prohibited. Here we go. Doesn't have the terms and conditions. It doesn't, except it does say free. Unreasonable expectations. It also says free, which, as we've talked about before, might mean bulk billed. It's not necessarily accurate. Same as last one. Yes. What about if it's genuine? Get people in the door and hopefully use other services. I guess, David, that means if it's genuinely free and they want to help people with hearing difficulties, then it might not be classified as misleading, I suppose. That might be one way to get them out of it. The terms and conditions, if we think that's clear enough, if it's genuinely free and they're just trying to get people in the door. But yes, you're right, it could be worded a little better and less dodgy. There we go. All right, I'm on the next one now, which is a chemist. And I've got to say, in putting together this presentation, I have found that chemists are pretty indiscriminate about how they advertise, which we can talk a little bit more about. So this one says, well, I won't read it to you. You guys can read it. But what do you think about this one? Blatant endorsement. That's right. We need to be very clear. I think there's hopefully people on the webinar that are learning things, but we do need to be clear. The national law prohibits the use of testimonials in advertising, and that's what this is. Next one, another testimonial. This one's on Facebook, have been going there for years. Staff are very helpful, doctors are great. So Facebook reviews are out. Disable them straight away.
We've got a question here, Sarah, on
yes.
Facebook. Just a quick question. Are Google reviews the same thing? Should people be disabling Google reviews?
I don't think it's possible to disable Facebook. Google reviews, sorry. I don't think that's possible.
And so then where does that leave people in regards to that?
It's a tricky one. And someone else has said, what about MD review websites? If you don't control them, then you can't do anything about them. I think I've heard from some doctors who have asked Google to remove them, but that's... yeah, I think if it's outside your control, and I've also had people ask me about what if there's people inside Facebook groups who are recommending them and giving them testimonials that they can't see and they can't control. Like some GPs in particular get mentioned in mothers groups a lot, I think, about supporting new mums, and you can't... that's not against the rules because you have no control over it. And just on Google reviews, George says you can't disable them without removing the Google business listing and, importantly, the map listing. So it's probably not sensible for your business to be removing that. I think you'd agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, definitely. You need to leave the business listing on Google is super important. It does put people in an awkward position with the Google reviews.
It does. I think a bit like lawyers, it can be hard to have accurate reviews on your service as a doctor because you might tell someone something that they don't want to hear, and that's not your fault. It's just the way things are sometimes, and people don't always react in a rational way when dealing with professionals like us. Kellyanne says that she's never Googled herself and she'd prefer not to. Does this help me if there are reviews out there on Google which refer to me? Probably not. They're either there or they're not, Kellyanne, and you can't control them. So if you're curious, maybe take a look. Naomi, you've been advised directly by APRA that because Google is outside the control of the practitioner, that's okay. So there you go, Kellyanne, you can Google yourself and be fine. Again, are you allowed to post on Facebook why you have removed and disabled testimonials? Well, if you want to, you can simply refer to your professional obligations and say that that's why you've disabled testimonials. You're allowed to reply to a Google review, whether it's positive or negative. I think it's probably better, James, not to engage with it. Just be like Kellyanne and pretend you never saw it. Now I've got a dentist example next. I visited Dr. So-and-so for 2 fillings in my teeth. It was a very comforting environment and I felt completely relaxed. So this is also a testimonial on Facebook. So that's a no. Now we've got someone was mentioning surgeons, I think, in the chat box. Know the national law in relation to these sorts of ads: lose weight fast. If you are at least 40 pounds overweight, then it may be very possible and easy for you to lose 20 pounds in 20 days and keep it off. I think we know not to do ads like that. It is suggesting indiscriminate, firstly unrealistic, yes, prohibited typographical errors. There's all sorts of things wrong with this one. Another chemist one, another weight loss one. So lose weight today with Medical Vita Diet. Medical Vita Diet was developed by doctors as a treatment for obesity without depriving the body of balanced nutrition. It was introduced into Queensland medical centres in 1987 and has been acclaimed as a highly successful diet. So this one I thought was directly or indirectly encouraging indiscriminate or unnecessarily use of regulated health services. So not to do something like that. Lose weight today. Does the diet make a leg drop off your top? Very good. Chemists are regulated as health professionals, yes, and we'll get into a bit later why they seem to so regularly breach the law. Next one is about atrial fibrillation, suggesting free blood pressure consultation. Don't know, what do we think about this? It sort of does cover who it's for. It does say free. Not sure about this one. Seems okay. It's all good. I think may not be based in fact. Could be an inducement and unnecessary. So we've got a few different views on this one. I thought it was a bit borderline, this one, and it's one of the things that makes this particular area of the law so hard for you guys and for us as well. Someone's going to say something. Is that you, Tom?
Yeah, so I was just thinking, the bit that makes you uncomfortable with it, is it the word free? If they removed free, come in for it and get a blood pressure consultation without the word free, would that be okay?
I don't know if it's, well, someone's just said this is medical advice. Atrial fibrillation is not related to blood pressure, so it's misleading. So maybe that's maybe that's the answer, that it's just, oh yeah, and George says, is this in the scope of the practice of a pharmacy? I don't know, George, maybe they have nurses that that work there too. Get the flu shot before the flu gets you, and bone density testing free today was one I saw as well. More indiscriminate use of health services, much like public services announcement overuse. All right, we're going to move on to images. So using images in your marketing. Importantly, you need to make sure that the lighting, if you're going to use before and after photos particularly, and Tom and I talked about this in the lead up to the session, that a lot of people are interested in the way that before and after photos work. So the lighting, background, framing, exposure, posture and clothing all need to be the same between the before and after shot. And so I do have some examples of this. Here's one. Why does this one not comply? Say straight out that it doesn't. Is it the lighting, background, framing, exposure, posture, clothing? Hairband needs to go, that's right. Clothing differs. Even the exposure looks a bit different to me. It's hard to say, because maybe if she took the headband off it would be a bit easier to tell. Yeah, you also thought that Tang thought the exposure might be different too. How about the next one? Does it comply? Before, James said that he thought that before and after shots are not within the law. They are, as long as all of those two things that I mentioned earlier are the same. So that is the lighting, background, framing, exposure, posture and clothing, and they also need to be a real patient. That's one of the required things. Yeah, I thought that that this one was okay, except the lighting's a bit funny and maybe the exposure, but it's pretty close. What about this one? Remember, they have to be a real patient and you must have their consent in writing. So this, to me, just doesn't even look like it's the same person. Not sure what you think about that. Different person and clothing different, that's right. So I mentioned one of the things that needed to be consistent, that advertising includes business cards and letterheads. So in using your title and professional qualifications, you just need to make sure that you do have the qualification that you say you do on your letterheads. So if you are a doctor, you are a doctor. If you're a surgeon, you have a different title. Just making sure that those are accurately described is very important on those sorts of documents. Surgery or medical procedures. If you want to advertise surgery or medical procedures, these must clearly state in the advertisements the following statement. Sorry, I've just seen James has asked a question. Oh, and Cindy has too. Cindy says for Botox injections, we can't see the effect on the same day, so clothing will be different. Is this not allowed? That's right, Cindy. It needs to be them wearing the same clothing. And also, if you aren't able to use the word Botox, so you can't use words like that, or Marina, words that are trademarked and owned by the drug companies can't be used what needs to be in the consent form for patient photos used in marketing. I guess that is it depends, James. It depends on your area. It depends on, yes, anti-wrinkle would be fine, Cindy. It depends on your area. It depends on what the consent you need is for. So that's probably one to get drawn up by a lawyer if you do need it at some stage to take the photos for your advertising. All right, back to the current slide. Any surgical or invasive procedure carries risks. Before proceeding, you should seek a second opinion from an appropriately qualified health practitioner. So that's for advertising for medical procedures only. And it also, there's a requirement that the text must not be smaller than the main text of the advertisement or in an obscure position. Anna, I'm going to call you Anna because I'm really worried about getting your name pronounced incorrectly. What about saying that you do vitamin C infusions, or do you have to stick to IV nutritional infusions? I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, Anna. Someone else might if they want to answer, but I can come back to your question, look into it and find out what would be the best way to express that if you need to know. All right. Prices. Most medical practices don't advertise price, but if you do want to, you're not allowed to use the phrases like as low as or lowest prices guarantee. You may not advertise limited time offers. Well, I had somebody in a presentation that I was in, a GP, mention that there was an IVF clinic in her town that does limited time offers where they bulk bill their services, and she said, like that, am I able to refer patients to them? And I don't think there's any prohibition against you referring people to who are breaching the law, but and that did seem like an extremely good deal to me, so I wasn't surprised that she was referring patients to them. But it's something to be aware of, that if you have a slow period like this IVF clinic did, it's not acceptable to say that for the months of whatever the slow period is that it's bulk billed if you're advertising it out to patients. So if this is unacceptable advertising, then what is acceptable advertising? Fundamentally, advertising of health and medical services needs to be factual, accurate and clear. So there was a practice that shared a Cancer Council article, for example. Probably not going to get you into any trouble doing that. The next one showed an informational video about immunisations, which also isn't a problem. So what are the consequences if you do break the law and AHPRA come knocking on the door? Well, there's fines of up to $5,000 if you're an individual, so if you practice under an ABN under your own name. Fines of up to $10,000 for a company. And I think that this might be why the chemists do break the law so regularly, because maybe they see a possible fine from AHPRA as just a cost of doing business. They might think, do the numbers on how much they're going to make out of doing a particular promotion and think that it's worth it. For a lot of doctors, I found the risk of being publicly shamed if it becomes public, that puts them off more than the financial risk of doing so. And what I found with with clients that we've acted for that have put things inadvertently, usually on their websites, that have breached the law, they get a letter from AHPRA, and as with most regulators, when you write back and say you're terribly sorry and you didn't realise and that you would be doing everything you could to comply with the law from now on, they tend to not be as interested in punishing you. They just want to know that you want to do the right thing a lot of the time, I think. So the next thing to familiarise yourself with, step 4, is the Therapeutic Goods Act, Regulation, Code, and the Price Information Code of Practice. Oh, I've got a handout. I might need to send that to you, Tom. It's got an interesting matrix of all of the therapeutic goods and how they're regulated. So I'll send that through to you to provide to the webinar participants.
Great. Do you want me to send that out now or after the webinar?
I think it's probably okay to do it after the webinar. I'm not sure it's going to be hugely useful to talk it through on the webinar.
Okay, cool. I'll send it. Yeah, I'll send it with a follow-up email.
Perfect. Excellent. So we've done the first 3 things: understanding the legislative framework, knowing the national law, and familiarising ourselves with the code. The 4th is fair trading. So the Trade Practices Act is the national law that covers fair trading. And as you can see from the wording on this slide, it's very similar to what's covered in the national law. So you mustn't engage in conduct that's likely to mislead or deceive. You've heard those words before. You mustn't make false or misleading claims or statements in relation to your services, and you must not engage in unfair or misleading pricing or advertising. So now that you know that, do you have a different lens on this next ad? I think you guys are like pretty much at the head of the class and already picked that the free part of this is what might be considered misleading and deceiving, because it's likely to be a Medicare bulk bill. So next is comparative advertising and cashback offers. These are also not really acceptable if you say come to see me because we're 25% less than those guys around the corner, or come and see us and we'll give you, we'll pay the gap for you, or we'll pay you back your Medicare fee or something to that effect. I'm trying to think of a good example and it's just not coming to me. It must be too late or too cold in Adelaide. But cashback offers are not allowed. The easiest way to think about it is that you, in all your advertising, need to be factual, accurate, clear and honest. Got a question from Anna. What if you advertise your services without quoting a price or offering a discount, but just ask people to contact you for more information? You can do that. I guess it will depend on the wording of your ad to make sure that it complies with all of these different laws. I think someone like Tom can probably help you establish.
We'll talk about this because I mean, competing on price is a bad way to compete. Competing on discounts, I mean, it's a race to the bottom. So we'll address that. Yeah. Okay,
that's in Tom's part of the presentation. The 5th step is to leverage an expert. So when you're trying this, doing things on your own can be hard. So using an expert like Tom can bring new ideas, best practice, accountability to your practice, and you'll learn a lot as well. So there's already new ideas in your head right now that wouldn't be if you hadn't made the time to come today. So today I promised that you'd have a step-by-step strategy to ensure you were confident your marketing would be legally compliant. We're going to go on to Tom's session. Maybe just see if there's any questions now, Tom. What do you think?
Yep. Yeah, cool. I'll just...
For my section. Any other questions that have come out of that? in the Q&A box. Here we go. Kellyanne says, what about advertising services? Let's say teaching meditation and mindfulness. The peer-reviewed evidence on this is difficult to find, and in fact, benefits are difficult to quantify. So, Kellyanne, would you be advertising that as a doctor, or had questions where people want to run a cafe, for example, and they want to know if they need to comply with this law, which they don't for the cafe, but I guess if you're running a meditation clinic separately, then it wouldn't necessarily apply. But if you're doing it in the practice, you just want to be careful about how you do the ad. And again, that's something that Tom can probably work through with you if you were going to do that. All right, Tom, over to you.
Cool. Thank you. That was fantastic. Thank you for that, Sarah. It's really good to see the reality and the facts behind the rules, because there's a lot of, it almost seems like it's that we don't know much about it, so we kind of are afraid of it or avoid it. But knowing more about it, it kind of sets the playing field. And now that we have these kind of the boundaries, the expectations, we can now get really creative and have a lot of fun in terms of how we do this marketing thing. Because the way that I see it, just going through that, and the examples that you showed me that were against the rules, I mean, they're just terrible marketing. If you're promising unrealistic expectations, if you have these crazy before and after photos that don't match, it's just really bad marketing. So it actually works in your advantage if you know a bit about marketing and you're working within these rules, because everybody who doesn't know as much about you as in marketing is going to be trying all these dodgy things. So let's look at how we can get a bit creative and have some fun with the marketing, because there's a big concept here that I want to address. And it's all about needs versus insight-based marketing. And a lot of what you saw throughout this presentation has been needs-based, where someone has a problem and they have a need and you're offering a solution, almost like an immediate fix, so to speak. So for example, my blood pressure is high, come and get a blood pressure check. The flu season's coming, get a vaccine. Which is needs-based marketing can bring you, temporary one-off customers, and only if they need it right now. This is the challenge that a lot of people face, is they feel that, yes, it's all about finding the people that need the help right now and trying to capture them. But the truth is, out of any marketplace, only a small fraction of people are going to be ready to go right now. There are going to be a fraction of people who are sick today who want to see a GP today, or who want a service today. The vast majority of people are not in that position, but have particular issues that they might want to learn about. So now we're looking at insight-based marketing. And insight-based marketing is all about you guiding them through and educating them on a topic to give them insights about some of the problems that they might be facing down the track. And at which point, when they have that problem, well, who are they going to come to? Well, they're going to come to you. And I want to give you a really good example of this, a really great analogy that will help you to kind of wrap your head around some of these marketing concepts as well. And the analogy goes like this. Someone is going hiking. They're going hiking in a bush trail, and they come around a corner and they see a river, and they need to cross that river. And they walk towards it and they think, okay, the only way I can get across this thing is by jumping and swimming across. And they jump in, and very quickly they're swept up by the currents. They're being churned around and they're starting to drown. And they're screaming out, help, help, help on the sideline in the water. And then all of a sudden, all these people jump out of the bushes to try and help. They're like, I'll help you, I'll help you. All these hands are popping out. And then this person is kind of in this position where they need help. And they're trying to compare, who do I go to? Who's the best person for the job? And this is essentially what happens when, for example, things like Google advertising, when people are already looking, they already have a problem, they have a need, and they're trying to get it solved. They're going and they're comparing based on things like price. They're comparing based on things like years of experience in a particular area or field of medicine, or they're comparing on all these very superficial kind of the factors that people feel are very important, and they are in the moment, right? But the challenge that you face is that there are so many other people jumping out of the bushes at that moment. You're competing with everybody else, and then it's that race to the bottom with the price. Well, my prices are cheaper. Well, I'll include this. I'll do this for free, or I'll include this thing, and then you're starting to break a lot of these rules. So a better approach is, instead of being at the side of the river trying to be the one that beats the competition in that intense kind of situation, let's take a step back before the river, to the bush, right before the client turned around that corner and saw the river. And let's get you standing there and being at the corner saying, hey, having a good day, great, you're about to turn around and there's going to be a big river you can't cross. And then they turn around and they turn the corner and they see the river and they're like, holy crap, you're right, there's a river I can't cross. Well, what do I do? And at that point, well, they're asking you, and you go, okay, well, come with me, I've got these boats. Come in with me, jump into the boat, they jump into the boat and cross with you. They take your solution, right? So does that make sense? Can you guys just type in, what does that analogy make sense? Any questions about that analogy? Into the Q&A box. Yeah, cool. So what we want to do is position you as not the person by the side of the river trying to fight tooth and nail for the cheapest price and the people who will just, for the scraps that's left over. Instead, we want you to be away from the river in a position where you know that your ideal client is starting to have a few issues, a few concerns or questions, and be in a position to then start to educate them on that topic, right? Starting to build that relationship with them through that education, so that then when they decide, right, I need help with this service or this product or this treatment, then they're going to turn to you, right? And so the way we do this is a couple of steps, right? Firstly, the concept of the way that we attract people, okay? The way that most people see marketing, and a lot of doctors as well, is they feel that it's pretty much this, what you see on the screen, right? It's you standing on a chair and yelling about yourself. And this is where people feel uncomfortable. They're like, I don't want to be screaming about myself. I don't want to be on social media talking about myself or that kind of a thing. But the truth is that, as I think I said it earlier, that any 16-year-old with an Instagram account is pretty much doing this. So we're inundated with all this noise about people who think that they're trying to tell us about themselves and what they do and what they can do for you and all that kind of stuff. And that's not very good marketing. It doesn't stand out these days, and it feels really awkward and weird. So a much better way of doing it is, and a much more effective way of doing it, is identifying what is going on in the hearts and the minds of your ideal clients. So in order to do this effectively, you have to be super specific on who your ideal client is. Because if you're saying, hey, it's anyone between the ages of 6 and 60, male or female, or whatever condition, or whatever situation, it's going to be very difficult to get into their minds and their hearts and to talk to them. So for the purposes of this exercise and being really effective with a particular campaign, we need to pick a particular ideal client. So a lot of you listening here are GPs. Others might have a particular niche that you're working with. I think there was some talk about Botox and injectables. You're starting to narrow the niche there. At least for the purposes of a campaign at once, you have to narrow down who you're going for. Because, for example, if you narrow down your message to, let's say it is a mum, a professional mum who's working full-time and has 2 primary school kids, we can already see, okay, the flu season's coming, or we can identify what are some of the concerns that will be going through her mind. So she'd be the decision maker in this situation. The mum, 2 kids, professional, and the concerns that are probably going through her mind are, well, okay, if my kids are off school then that means I'm off work and I'm missing days off work, and that's going to affect me in my job and in the stress levels that I'm going through, as well as it may make her sick, the whole family will be sick, and then she'll be lumped with having to look after everybody, right? Then we're generalizing here, but we kind of have to get get into the mind of this person. So then we know what the concerns are, kids getting sick, or maybe there's a gastro bug going around, and making sure that the whole family is well, and being ready for the cold and flu season, and making sure that the whole family is in optimal health and energy to prevent anything that might come up. So what this means is that you can craft a message that says something like, hey, you've been working intensely over the last few months, and you've realized that the winter's coming along, and some of the other parents are talking about their kids getting sick. You're starting to wonder how you can prepare your family for the cold and flu season. What can you do to make sure that everyone's at optimal health and you're prepared so that you're not taking time off work and having to look after the whole family? If you want to know more about that, click here to learn how to maintain optimal health leading into the cold and flu season, right? And this way, right, what we're doing, we're staying within the guidelines. This is educational material that you're offering. You're talking in a way that we didn't even mention what we offer, right? We didn't mention ourselves or any kind of consultation or any kind of free offer or anything like that. We said, hey, is this you? Are you going through these challenges? If you are, then here's something that will help you to understand more about this and to prepare yourself. And at that point, that's what we call a lead magnet. You have offered them an opt-in or a way to, they said put in your email address or their email address, and you send them the ebook about how to prepare themselves, or maybe it's a video, whatever it is. It's an educational piece that helps them to address the problem that you've just articulated in the ad. And at that point, when you offer them the education, you do so. You can talk about what you do at that point, or just don't even mention yourself at all. But when that mum is going through your material and she is learning from you about how to prevent the illnesses that are going to be coming over the next season, and then something does happen and she needs to see somebody or get some professional help, well, who's she going to go to? Right? You, because she spent this time getting to know you and trust you and respect you and seeing that you understand her and can help her. And at that point, they're going to come to you. And this applies to whether, pretty much across the board in terms of the products and the services that are offered. I mean, there are a few exceptions, as there are with most things, but this will allow you to start building that community and database of potential future clients and patients who are getting to know you and like you and respect you. And then if they need to see somebody, they're going to come to you. So kind of like in this situation here, right? You opted in, you saw an ad, or you saw an email or a post that spoke about the challenges that most doctors have with marketing, the fears that they have, the concerns that they have. And to address that, there's this educational webinar. You clicked in, you put in your details. And since then, you've received some communication from us. You're here learning from us. And now if you decide to, right, I need to see a lawyer, well, who are you going to go to? You're more likely to go to Sarah. And if you need help with your marketing, well, who are you going to talk to? You're more likely to talk to me. Is this making sense, guys? Any questions? Or what questions do you have about how this might relate to what you're doing? No questions? Cool. All right. Well, let me give you a few more examples, because this insight-based marketing is what can really differentiate you from everybody else in your marketplace, because most people go based on that needs-based marketing, where there's someone who has an immediate problem now and then they compete to try and get them. They try and compete to try and get them. But if you're around that bush, right, you're around the other corner of that bush and you're there educating them, giving them insights about, because they're already starting to have a few concerns, like this mum that we mentioned, already starting to have a few concerns about winter coming and questions that she has. How do I prepare? Then you can position yourself in a really great way to be the person to guide them through. So another example of this could be for, let's say it is the kind of aesthetic. We've come across a lot of people who want to do teeth whitening, right? Many dentists, or actually, no, most people here are doctors. So if you guys want me to run through a particular example for your situation, type it in. But what I'll do now is I'll look at the aesthetic side of things, because a lot of people are worried about that, and they end up in that race to the bottom in terms of discounts, right? So what we want to do instead is position you as the expert, as the go-to person, as someone who understands them and can provide a high quality service and something that's really going to help. So rather than going for, okay, so we have this discounted procedure that you can do, let's take a step back from that and go, okay, who is your ideal client? What are their concerns? What are their worries? What are they going through that you may be able to help them? So let's say that it is someone who has recently had surgery to their face, and they feel very self-conscious about a particular, how their lips are appearing because of a procedure, or maybe they've had a cancer removed, right? And they need to go to work, and perhaps they work in front of a lot of people or cameras, and they feel very self-conscious, and it's affecting their confidence. And they're starting to be concerned about their performance at work and what people are saying, and they want to see what they can do to address that. So we can craft a message that speaks to those concerns, that speaks to this person's doubts and worries in a really compassionate way, where we actually show them that we understand what they're going through and we care about them and can help them. Because essentially that's what any good marketing does. It shows someone that you understand them, that you care about them, and that you can help them. And the key to doing all of that is not talking about yourself, but talking about what they're going through. So for example, the post or the ad might go something like, you've recently had a procedure on your face and you're starting to, but you've got to go back to work, and you're worried about how it will affect your performance and how you'll be able to, whether you'll be able to be at your best. You're feeling great that you've had the procedure, but now you're starting to feel like you need to improve and again, we don't want to be promising things that aren't realistic. We want to connect with the doubts and the experience that the person is having. So it might be, so you've had the procedure, you're feeling doubtful, you're feeling very self-conscious, you want to be at your best, and you want to be able to step out confidently and feel that you are performing in a way that you did before the procedure. If you'd like to know more about how to do this, click here to learn about my 7 steps to effective recovery after facial procedures. Right, and then you go through the few steps that those 7 steps. You educate them on how to look after themselves, what to look out for, what to not do, and at the bottom of the emails or around what you do, there'll be a description about what you do and what services you can offer. Right, so you're not directly telling them to, hey, book yourself in. I mean, you can do that at the end. Say, hey, if you want to know, if you would like to see somebody about this and get a professional consultation, come and see me, here are my times. Now, we're not saying it's free, because it's not, but at that point you don't need to. because they've learned from you, they've received that guidance, and if they're going to go to anyone, they're going to come to you. Cool. So now, in terms of that, conceptually that is great, but in terms of actually applying this can be quite challenging. So in terms of the steps to take to be able to do this really effectively, and this applies to everything that we've talked about today. First thing is you need to identify who is your ideal client, who is the person that you want to attract, and you do have to be specific, because then you can get into the minds and understand the questions that they have, the things you can educate them on, the doubts that they're experiencing, and craft a message that speaks to that, and then offer a lead magnet that educates them on that topic. And then the fourth would be, when you're educating them on that topic, you can include ways that people can get in touch with you if they want more in-person assistance. All right, we've got a few questions coming in. So can you advertise educational-based advertising in consumer publications? Can you advertise? So that's, I think, one for Sarah. But here's the thing. What I'm talking about is not you saying, hey, here's my book, get my book. You should get my book, you should get my course. It's, hey, are you having this, you're having this difficulty, you're experiencing these challenges. So you're joining the conversation in their minds, because if you can articulate what they're going through better than they can, they will gift you, they'll automatically see you as the person with a solution to their problem. Because if you can articulate that, they will get the book, because they're like, holy crap, this person gets me. They know what I'm going through. They're in my mind, in my heart. I want to know what they're talking about. So even your advertising, your educational stuff, you're not specifically talking about that. It's just a call to action at the end, saying, hey, if you want to know more, if you want to see, you want the 7 steps, if you want to learn more about this, click here to find out more. Any questions about that? We've got one here from Candace that's really more of a question for Sarah. But from actually, I'm not going to answer that one. Sarah, are you still there?
Yes, I am. I'm not entirely sure what Candace means. If she's got like an online training program for someone, for something that they get for patients to kind of learn about IBS or skin cancer or some sort of science thing that you
That's
guys.
what I'm thinking. It's, hey, this is a newspaper or something that consumers are reading, and she has an educational product in there, or would like to put one in there.
I'm not clear on whether it's like a medical education product or if it's separate, like a separate business. So I guess the answer to that one is it depends. Like, I think we need more information.
Okay, so we've got one here from Kelly Ann.
Oh, Kelly Ann.
Yeah, so there's one here for you, Sarah, a question.
Yeah, so I think, Kellyanne, that's the same as the doctor that I talked to at an event who wanted to run a cafe. I think it's hard if you're going to do it as a, like if you want to run a service-based business like motivational life coaching or meditation practice, as someone else mentioned earlier. Like, I think it is when you're doing personal services to not be a doctor, because you always are, in the same way that I'm always a lawyer. I can't separate myself from that either. But you can run a different business where you aren't, that isn't you offering personal services, if that makes sense.
Cool. Thank you for that, Sarah. Any other questions? Because I think we've reached I've covered what I really wanted to cover with the marketing, to give you guys that concept around needs versus insight-based marketing, and how to really resonate with your ideal client and position yourself in a way which sees you as the obvious choice, as well as getting to know them and then getting to know you, so that if they go to anyone, they go to you. And at that point, you're not discounting your prices. You can just feel confident about charging the prices that you want to. So, I mean, if there are no more questions, then thank you, Sarah, for coming along, for preparing, for guiding us through all of this, for answering the questions and educating us on this. It's been really cool.
Whoops, thanks for having me. Sorry, I muted myself.
All good. Now let me just bring up your slides again. So off the back of this webinar, if people are like, hey, looks like I need to see a lawyer, I need to speak to somebody, how do people get in touch with you?
That's social links. So we're on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. We've also got my contact details are next, I think, on the next slide.
Yep.
And I run a Facebook group as well, which is called You Legal for Doctors, and we have people ask legal questions in there, which you're welcome to join and ask questions of each other and of me in there. I'm on there every day, so whoever asks questions, I try and get back to you pretty quickly. And yeah, so that's a good way to contact me too. And my website is ulegal.com.au as well.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Sarah. That was really, really cool. And now we have a really great understanding of the playing field that we're working within. And if you guys want some help with your marketing, whether it's for your clinic or non-clinic based business, you can reach out to us via email, reply to any of the emails you've received from us, or catch us on Facebook. But for now, thank you, everybody. And thank you for coming along and asking your questions and getting and engaging. And I hope you've learned a lot. Thanks again, Sarah, and we'll be in touch. All the best. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.